Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel, where today I want to talk to you about some palettes in my collection that have good memories. Now, I thought at first I would do good and bad memories, but I don't actually keep any palettes that have bad memories because why would I do that? So these are going to be eyeshadow palettes that are all associated with good memories for me. I've got a nice little handful here. It's not going to be a super long video, but I thought it'd be fun to chat about this because I love going through my collection and seeing what things are special and why. If you're interested in seeing that, don't go anywhere. If you've never been here before, hello. My name is Rachel. I'm a homeschooling stay-at-home mom, and I really love to play with eyeshadow, but especially colorful eyeshadow. Today's look was actually filmed. I will link it down below in the description box. For this look, I used 10 eyeshadow palettes because I did a palette bingo using my top 10 palettes from 2022. So make sure you check out that video if you want to see how I did this and what palettes I used. And without further ado, let's get rolling with today's video. I thought it was only right to start with a custom palette that was built for me by my sister for my birthday. This is a palette by MAC. She knew that I was really into eyeshadow and she wanted to be a blessing to me. I had been going through a time where I was feeling pretty underappreciated, and so she thought, hey, Rachel's birthday is coming up, I'm gonna do something a little bit extra. So she went to a friend of hers who worked at MAC and they worked together to build this little custom quad for me, and she was so thoughtful. It was just, I can card above a video where I talk about how sweet she was and all of the effort she put into making this quad, because she went back through my entire YouTube history and made a list of all the palettes I'd tried, the brands I liked, the brands I didn't like, the colors that I liked. She was extremely thorough. So every time I look at this palette, I am so very touched by how thoughtful and loving my sister is, and we have a great relationship, so it makes me miss her. It makes me a little bit wistful and it's slightly teary. It's a pretty palette. I think the colors that she picked are very nice, and it just has really, really sweet, loving memories for me. So here we have the Lush Life palette from Colourpop. The reason that this palette is in today's video is because this is one of the palettes that I bought when I was just getting into color. When I started playing with eyeshadow, I found Judy, and Judy has a lot of more subdued, more monochromatic style, and she does a beautiful job. I was completely envious of her blending skills, especially when I first started and I had no skills. But Judy's color story and preferences are just a little bit more muted and quiet, a bit more soft and romantic. And then I found Angelica Nyqvist, and when I found Angie, I really tuned into the color lover in myself. And so I had bought a bunch of Colourpop palettes on Judy's recommendations, but then I started looking at palettes that were more colorful on Angie's recommendation, and this is the one that reminds me of just dipping my toes into color. Like, yes, I like color. I think I can do this. I think that this is going to be the sort of thing that feeds my soul. And I bought the Lush Life palette with a bit of apprehension, thinking, I don't know if I'm gonna like this. I don't know if these wild tropical parrot sorts of colors are really gonna be okay on me with my personality, with my skill level. How is this gonna work? But I took the dive, and of course, at first it was a bit rough. You know, my first looks with this palette were a lot. But I didn't know any better, and I was learning the skills, and I was growing, and I was building the confidence. And so this palette reminds me of dipping my toes into color and really stepping into that world. Here is the Norns palette from Udonzai. This palette has good memories because it is the very first Udonzai palette that I bought. I loved the packaging. I thought the color story was super pretty. It was very well reviewed. I especially liked all these vibrant, bright multi or duochromes on the bottom. It was just an interesting palette, not super duper bright like the tropical colors of the Lush Life palette. These were a little bit toned down, you know? But this was my first Udonzai palette. Like I said, I loved the packaging. When I tried it, I started to love the formula. Udonzai is now probably my favorite brand. It just reminds me of my very first palette from a brand that I really appreciate. The formula, the packaging, the design, the way it all works together. It's a very good palette. I recently did an entire week of uploads using only the Norns palette, which I can card above for you as well if you're interested in seeing that. I also have an Udonzai playlist because, like I said, Udonzai, great brand, but this one has good memories. Let's talk about the Limoncello palette from Colourpop. Again, I bought a lot of Colourpop at the beginning because that was a brand that Judy loves, and so when I was watching a lot of her videos, I was buying the things that she was recommending. This palette, I have to admit that I bought more for the packaging than for the color story. The color story is pretty, and it's very good for what it is. If you want these more warm-toned neutrals with little pops of color, this is very good quality. It's a great palette. However, the packaging sold me I lived in Italy for a little while. I say this all the time. I didn't live there long enough. I was Italian in another life. I love everything Italian. The music, the places, the people, the culture, the art, the language, everything Italian, I am there. So this palette reminds me of my time in Italy. It brings back such nice memories. I love the tile work. I love the details in the lemons. They're raised and textured that actually feels like the rind of a lemon. I love the way that the coloring and the packaging carries all the way through. We've got little flowers on the inside. There's sort of a fake leatherette kind of texture here, so again it feels like the rind of a lemon. The colors are bright and sunny and Tuscan. I lived in Tuscany when I was there. Oh my goodness, this palette just makes my soul happy. It brings back so many good memories of living in Italy, making friends, studying the language, taking voice lessons. This is my happy spot. I love it. Back to Udonzai. Here is the Hela palette between Udonzai and Angelica Nyqvist. I bought this palette for two reasons. The first being that it was a collab with Angelica and I really wanted to support her, support what she does, support her channel. She does an amazing job. She's super inspiring. I very much enjoy pretty much all of her content. The other reason was, of course, the color story, because green is my favorite eyeshadow color and this palette is very green heavy. It's got some more yellowy tones, it's got some pinks and purples. It's very varied and diverse. It has everything you'd want because Angelica knows exactly what you need for a good eye look. Between depth and contrast and texture and inner corner highlights, this palette has it all. It's amazing. This one has good memories because it reminds me of Angelica. Of course, it makes me think of her and all of the inspiration and creativity I've learned and gleaned from her. It makes me smile thinking about how I was able to help support her channel in just a little way by buying a collab palette. My favorite brand, love it across the board. Okay, so going back to people being thoughtful and considerate when it comes to me and my interest in eyeshadow, I have to talk about the Whistler Snow Lodge palette from Nomad Cosmetics because this was actually a gift from a subscriber. Now, this subscriber had messaged me on Instagram and we got to talking and we kind of became friends, you know? And when this palette went on sale around Black Friday of 2022, I really liked the color story. I wanted the palette, but I was on a low or no buy. I was trying not to spend money out of our personal bank account. And she was like, but it's on sale. And I'm like, I know, and it's a great deal, but it's just not going to happen. So she actually went out and spent the money herself and she bought this palette for me, had it shipped to my house, and it was such a beautiful and thoughtful gesture from a sweet woman that I met through this makeup community online. This is a good palette to remind me that when you open yourself up and you are willing to be a little bit vulnerable and open and honest with people, you can really have some lovely relationships and make friends. So this is the Whistler Snow Lodge palette. I wanted to try Nomad as well, so this was one of the palettes that got me stepped into that brand, and I think the color story is beautiful. I think it's executed very, very well. It's so lovely. It's so on theme. This palette has nice memories because it's a great palette, but more than that, it reminds me of a nice friendship. One more mention for Colourpop. Here is the collaboration between Colourpop and Raw Beauty Christie. This is the At Forest Sight palette. This palette has good memories for two reasons. The first is that it is probably the first palette I saw when I was really into Colourpop that made me go, oh, you know, and of course, by the time I had started eyeshadow, this palette was long out of stock. You know, it was limited edition, discontinued, it was gone. And it was really hard to find. I searched the secondhand apps almost daily until one finally came up, which was also within a reasonable price point because anybody who ever listed one of these for sale wanted way more money than I was willing to spend. And then I stayed up late to negotiate with the seller and work the price down to something that I felt was workable and reasonable. And so, I mean, I remember going to bed that night feeling elated, like, yes, I got it. I'm so excited, you know? So this is the At Forest Sight palette from Colourpop. The other reason that this palette makes me smile and has good memories is because I have a small art business. I do some watercolor painting as part of it, and I adore this packaging. Kind of like Limoncello brings back all these happy, sunny Tuscan memories for me. This palette brings memories and inspiration for my business. The projects that I've done and the people that I've served and the techniques and skills that I've learned along the way, there's always room for improvement. Believe me, there is room for improvement. But this palette's packaging with the beautiful watercolor details, it's very earthy, it's very grounded. I love how the trees just recede into the background. I've done art like this, you know, and it makes me feel happy, it makes me feel calm and peaceful, and it makes me feel inspired to step away from eyeshadow perhaps and go take out my paintbrushes and do something else, something that's also artistic and creative, because that's why I do eyeshadow. It's really just creative expression. So the packaging of the At Forest Sight palette taps into a different area of my creative expression, gets me inspired to go whip out some paper and watercolors and have fun doing something else that I love to do. And finally, I'm going to talk about two palettes that have nice special memories for me for the same reason. This is first the Merry Christmas palette from Udonzai. This was their 2022 limited edition holiday release along with a second palette. And here's the Wilderness palette from Beauty Bay. Both of these palettes are in this video because I am so happy that I snagged them. The Wilderness palette was launched and then out of stock, restock, out of stock a couple of times before it was discontinued. And the limited edition Merry Christmas palette, along with their Christmas Eve palette, which I didn't buy, this was also limited edition. I believe they restocked once with pre-orders and that was it. You had a very small window of time to get these palettes and they were launched before Halloween. And some people were giving them a hard time saying, why would you launch holiday palettes so much earlier than Christmas time? Because people weren't really in the mindset to be buying Christmas palettes. However, people did say, you know what, this gives you plenty of time to order something from Sweden and have it shipped internationally and arrive in time to give as a gift or to have throughout the Christmas season. But also in Sweden, they don't really celebrate Halloween. So they launched something at a time that they felt was reasonable for where they are and weren't really considering American holidays. So we were all in the Halloween mindset, but the rest of the world was not. So it wasn't unreasonable for them to launch something, at the end of October in preparation for the holiday season. Anyway, I have no FOMO about these palettes. There was no fear of missing out. There was no regret. There was no, oh man, I wish I'd grabbed that, when I had the chance. There's no hunting the secondhand sites to try to find one that's not priced at $160. I'm just so excited that I have these because I really love the color stories. I very much enjoy the formula. Again, Udonzai is one of my favorite brands, but Beauty Bay is great too. They have awesome formula. The Wilderness palette I got sort of on a bandwagon, like everyone's raving about this, but in hindsight, this has consistently ranked top 5, I think. Every single time I rank my palettes, this one is high. And then this one, I had a subscriber mention, how did you know that this palette was going to sell out? And I don't know. I just had a feeling that it was going to be gone quickly. Like, yeah, that one's special for some reason, even if I can't quite pinpoint the reason, and I'm going to grab it while I have the opportunity to do so because it was sold out later that day. And so many people are feeling bad that they missed out on these palettes, and I'm sorry if you did. I do see them on the secondhand sites. The Wilderness palette is now becoming available for lower prices. The lowest I've seen is $20, which is a great price because the palette was only $18 to start with plus shipping. The highest I've seen is like, $60, $70, but it's not worth it for that. It's just eyeshadow. This one, however, because it is still kind of a recent release, you cannot find this for a reasonable price. People are charging $270 for the Udonzai Christmas releases. But anyway, I'm so happy that I have those two. They are such assets to my collection. They are inspiring to me. They make me feel creative. They challenge me, and they're just palettes with good memories. So that about wraps it up for today's video. I hope you guys have enjoyed this. Remember to check the description box to see this eyeshadow look. And if any of these palettes are still available, I'll link them down below for you. A couple of them are, I think. I will do what I can. I hope you have enjoyed this video. Remember to like and subscribe before you leave. And until I see you again, I hope you have a great day. Bye.